Again, it's a global panel. We have had people fly in. Will you please all take your seats, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you. We have had people fly in from all over the world for this one, and we are going to talk about diversity actually driving travel, technology, and innovation. Now, this is very close to my heart. I work with a lot of technology companies myself, so I'm very keen to see how technology is actually helping sort of moving the needle. Now, first to the scene, we are going to be inviting Aditi Mohapatra from Expedia Group. Thank you very much for being here, Aditi. And Aditi, she will present some newly conducted research highlighting why, indeed, inclusive travel makes a lot of sense and fuels success. So, Aditi will then be joined by a wonderful panel moderated by Stuart Greif from the Forbes Travel Guide, and I will bring all those guys up to the stage, and Aditi will also be on the panel later. So without any further ado, Aditi, the stage is definitely yours. Bring it on. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Aditi Mohapatra. I lead social impact and sustainability at Expedia Group. Thrilled to be able to be here today. For those of you that are not familiar, Expedia Group is a leading global online travel and technology company. We have 3 main consumer brands, Expedia, Hotels.com, and Vrbo, as well as a growing and large B2B business. Supporting all of that is our AI and machine learning technology platform. And supporting all of that, of course, is our depth and breadth of our travel supply offerings. So we are focused on the whole travel industry, of course, and our mission as a company is to power global travel for everyone, everywhere. When we think about that, and when I think about that from a social impact and sustainability perspective, the mission becomes really clear. How do we ensure that we are able to really ensure that everyone has access to all the joy and benefits that travel has to offer? So at Expedia Group, last year, we conducted a research study that really focused in on underserved populations and what kinds of barriers and access challenges they faced when they were trying to experience travel. We know that by 2030, the proportion of underserved identity groups within the US is set to grow in a big way, and underserved travelers, and the definition of underserved for this research report were Black travelers, Latino travelers, LGBTQIA travelers, as well as travelers with disabilities. And as we knew inherently that they faced many barriers when they were trying to experience travel, but we wanted to dig into better understanding what those barriers and challenges look like and how we as a travel industry could really meet the needs of those. Also, I think it was really important for us to put some data behind some of these challenges that we know. We are obviously a technology company, and having informed data insights to really drive the kinds of solutions we were trying to build was really important for us. Why did we want to do this? Why is it important to us? We know that there's a very strong and growing business case for investing in inclusive and accessible travel for travelers everywhere. We know that travelers with disabilities have an estimated annual spending power of $1.9 trillion in the US. We know the purchasing power of the Latinx market is $3.78 trillion, so on and so forth. You can see all the stats here. It really does, they continue to make up a large portion of the travel industry and have growing buying and economic power. So what we chose to focus on were these communities and really look at their individual experiences across these different groups. And when we looked out there, we did see that there were a number of studies that looked at what is the state of kind of Black travel today? What are some of the challenges and opportunities within that segment? Travelers with disability. Other parts of the industry were less researched, we found. And also there was very few studies, actually we didn't find many at all, that were really looking at intersectional identities and looking at these communities both as individuals and also what is that kind of shared set of challenges that again can raise the bar for all travelers. So we did a survey of about 3,000 travelers across the US. We also did focus groups, and we spoke to a number of different industry experts as well who have been working in this space for a long time to inform our approach. What we found won't surprise you, but of course, underserved travelers really feel that the travel industry should better represent their needs. So this comes to life in a variety of different ways, which we will get into. But part of our research, what we've wanted to look at is how do travelers experience the industry from start to end? Do they, one, even think about booking a trip? Is travel something that they see themselves in? When they are looking out to search and book travel, what kinds of barriers and challenges are they finding there? When they reach a destination, what does that look like? And really, how are they then giving that feedback back to their community and reporting back out to their community what their experience looked like? So what we found and what we heard from them was really consistent, that we need to do a better job as an industry meeting the needs of these travelers. One of the things that we found that was most important to these travelers was to really embed inclusion throughout your brand, to do so in really authentic and consistent ways. So thinking about everything from your content and your messaging, is that something that are we using kind of gender neutral language? Are we thinking about the kinds of images that we're providing in marketing and advertising in particular? How are we communicating with our travelers? And what are the kinds of activities and experiences we're offering to these different communities as well? Some of the stats are incredibly interesting. So we found that 70% of underserved travelers are more likely to plan a trip if they can see themselves within that industry. So, I mean, already right here, we're leaving 70% of these travelers out if they don't see themselves in that experience. So we found it to be really, really important. I think on the last panel, we heard a lot about, don't design anything for us without us, and that's one of the principles that we embedded into our approach into inclusive travel as we move forward as well. Create with community in mind, and really ensure that you're engaging that community in the process. So Expedia Group has done a lot of work to make sure that we're engaging directly with the communities, everything from working directly with our own employee resource groups that represent many of these communities, but are also, of course, travelers themselves, to ensuring that when we show up at conferences and in different forums, we ask the questions around what are some of the challenges and barriers that these different communities might face. So we think it's really important to make sure that you're creating with the community in mind. The second piece, of course, is that representation is really important in travel advertising. So what you'll see and what we found is that 76% of underserved travelers believe it's really important for them to see themselves in travel ads and promotions. And seeing themselves in these ads actually allows them to think about where to go and where to travel. However, you can see a really big gap between what they want and what they believe we're doing today. Most of them do not feel that we are currently representing them well in travel advertising. So only 16% of travelers feel that travel promotions represent them authentically. And so here, we think it's really important, one of the principles that we also have in place within Expedia Group is to make sure that you're mirroring the diversity that you want to see in your travelers within your own workforce. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about workforce diversity in this panel, but this is really making sure that you're showing up within your own workforce and to be able to mirror that then in the kinds of programs and advertising and initiatives that you put out there for the travel industry. So you'll see these really big gaps, again, between how important they view ads and promotions to be and how well they think that we're doing it today. The next piece is really around making sure that you are featuring underserved travelers in your content, in your ads. You're promoting them more frequently and authentically. So that delta that we saw is really what we view as a big opportunity to do things better and to make sure that we all are improving that representation, but again, in ways that are really considered authentic. We know that there's a lot of missteps that brands can also take in this space, so making sure that you're creating with community in mind, that you're engaging the community in part of that process is really important, and that you have the representation of the team that's also building those advertisements and that content, and internally doing the kinds of reviews that we think are really helpful to making sure that you're meeting the desired population. So within our own business, we have advertising products where we're able to customize and be able to bring some of this content to light for our travelers. And there's lots of ways that you can stand out, and everything from designating yourself as an LGBTQIA friendly hotel on search and in different options like that, to ensuring that you're putting all of the right information out there on the accessibility of your hotels or of your activities so that travelers are able to find the right information that they need. And here the stat is that 71% of brands, the 71% of underserved travelers prefer brands that they see that are prioritizing inclusion and diversity within their own workforce as well. So the efforts that you're doing internally do show up outside as well. And then this is the area that I think is also a really big opportunity for the industry in terms of how much time it is taking underserved travelers to research and book travel. So we know that for underserved travelers, it's incredibly important to make sure that they can feel safe and welcomed when they're going to different places and spaces. So this translates into additional burdens in terms of the amount of time that they are required to invest to make sure that they can feel safe and welcome when they go to different locations. What we found is that underserved travelers spend about 9 hours researching and planning travel, but they have to add an extra 5 extra hours to confirm the safety, inclusivity, and accessibility of the destinations. This goes up, though, as you start to look at different intersectional identities. If you look at different groups, for example, LGBTQIA+ women often spend an extra 9 hours to make sure that they can feel safe when traveling to a destination. So this shows up just as a real burden that these individuals have to bear just to be able to book the same kind of travel that many others can do so on much more of a whim. And this is where we thought it was really important to, again, put some data behind these numbers so that we can really try to understand and try to make an effort, of course, at reducing some of these burdens as well. So you can see some of the stats here just about how long it can take just for research and planning overall, and then again, that additional time that's required just based on their identity. So here we found that one of the greatest ways to be able to reduce some of this burden, of course, is providing better quality information and trusted information to travelers, but also here, we found that underserved travelers are much more likely to book and believe the kind of information that they're getting if it's coming from individuals from their own background and their own identity. If they can see themselves in the reviews, in the planning process, in what information they're getting about a property, that's really critical. We've seen, as part of some of the programs that we run at Expedia Group, focus on inclusive travel. We've engaged with a number of these different small travel businesses that are really designed at just bringing out information for these particular communities. Organizations or companies such as Green Book Travel, which is all about promoting and providing information to inform the Black travel experience, for example. And so businesses have been built up just around making sure that we can get the right information to these different communities. I think part of the way that we're trying to do that is through some of the programs that we run with influencers and others, where we're making sure that we have a really diverse set of influencers so they can also share their ideas and to their community in a way that's going to be received and trusted by their communities as well. And then, of course, it's really, really important to make sure that you are providing accurate information, descriptions, photographs of your accessible options. I think we got some other really great tips on the panel just before this. Making sure that you're listing things like languages that are spoken by your staff. This is an area that was really particularly important in our research for the Latinx community. Including imagery that's, that makes it clear that you're welcoming of all different groups in your marketing as well, and making sure that you designate your property, on relevant filters as needed, as being LGBTQIA friendly, for example. You can do that across our platforms. You can also provide a lot of information about the accessibility of your hotel or of your property as well, to make sure that individuals have the right kinds of information that we need. And I think here, this is where also we want to make sure, I think on the last panel, there's also just conversation around universal design and making sure that you're building things kind of with everyone in mind. And then this is how you can then make sure for a platform like Expedia that you're giving us all the right content, then we can get that out there to our travelers as well. So this is kind of the final slide here, which is really just about what are some of the things that you can do to ensure that you are setting your business up for success and taking and attracting the most diverse set of travelers possible. Again, powering travel for everyone and ensuring that you're welcoming everyone. We know, again, that many underserved travelers face very unique sets of challenges and opportunities when they're trying to travel. They have this additional burden around the kind of time that they have to take to be able to make informed travel decisions. They want to make sure that the content that they're getting is trusted, is from their own community. They want to be able to see themselves in the destinations that they're visiting. So, you have to make sure, of course, that you're doing things like just representing underserved travelers in the kinds of ads that you're putting out there, instilling confidence with the right kinds of resources and tools that you have out there, building loyalty. We also found in our research that underserved travelers are much more likely to reward travel companies with loyalty if they are seeing that they're actually investing in inclusion and diversity. And then this is a final link to the QR code for the research itself. So the research, I went through very high-level data points, but the research has a ton of data within it. And we really did this intentionally to be able to put that information out there so everyone can get that research, equip themselves with the kinds of data points that are most relevant for the kinds of efforts that you're trying to drive forward within your own workplace. So please do download the research and look forward to the discussion. So I think now we will.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Fantastic. That
Thank
really,
you.
really does set the scene. Let's give Aditi a hand and go and take a seat, darling, and I'll get the panel up. Thank you very much. Wonderful, and really, I'm sure there will be plenty of you that will be diving into all of this research. But thanks very much for sharing the highlights. And I think it's an exclusive to ITB Berlin.
That's right.
So thank you kindly. That's what we like. Now, it gives me great pleasure, as I said earlier, to introduce you to also our wonderful panel. First up, I would like to introduce you to our moderator, Stuart Greif, none other. He is probably quite familiar to some of you. He is with the Forbes Travel Guide. And Stuart last year very kindly joined me on a panel, and this year he has got the job as moderator of this one. So that's how what goes round comes round, or what comes round goes round. And next up, I'd like to introduce you to Maria van Forster, who is the CEO of Rightdress. Welcome, Maria. A clap for her as well. And then we've got Sabrina Westphalinger, who is Senior Director for Talent and Culture at Accor. And last but not least, our other gentleman is Monish Lutra, who is the CEO of Odysseus Solutions. And the stage, Stuart, is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you, Charlotte, and welcome, everyone. It's great to be here. We want to thank ITB, Charlotte, of course, and A Bright Approach, and our host country, Albania, for the opportunity to be here. Aditi, we're going to go with some of the other panelists first, and then we'll start integrating you back in. So I thought we could start out, if maybe we start with Monish and go down, just a little bit about your role background and why DEI for you and your company.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Monish Luthra, President and CEO of Odysseus Solutions. We are a travel solutions provider. We look at DEI more from the perspective of the universal design concepts as we build our applications and our interfaces for clients. And also from a hiring perspective, our team's based in India. We look at more for different cultures, cost, how we interact with them, and also community outreach, community building, socioeconomic, bridging the gap. So that's how we focus on it.
Wonderful. Sabrina?
Yeah, Accor is running over 5,000 hotels worldwide, and for us, diversity comes naturally with like guests from all over the world with different backgrounds and different stories, and we also like to bring this diversity within our workforce.
Wonderful. Maria?
Hi, I'm Maria von Forrester with Rightres, and we are a technology company that focuses on booking and managing airline reservations. And why DEI for us? Part of it for me is personal. My son has a non-apparent disability. He has ADHD, so that's driven this for me personally, but also translated into our company because we really focus on hiring the most diverse, the best team that we can build. And so we base that on their skill sets, and we have naturally created a lot of diversity within our company.
Wonderful. And Forbes Travel Guide I shared last year, we're 50% women-led at an executive level, 65% beyond that. We have more work to do, I believe, in different elements of diversity. And I come from a home where my wife and 2 kids and apparently our new dog all have a little bit of ADHD. So I'm also aware of the non-apparent, which is important to me as well personally. When we think about the term DEI, it seems like the term is on the wane, it's on the attack. But I was speaking at Alice, and we had the CEOs of just about every major hotel, global brand company out there, including Accor, talk about, almost reassert, I would say, very strongly and stridently, the case for DEI. Our industry is global, our guests are global, our employees are global. I'd love to get a sense for 2025, what are the areas specifically, areas of focus within DEI that are important to you. What are your priorities this coming year? Manish, do you want to kick us off again?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we heard from the earlier two panels that the ADA compatibility law is going into effect. So that is a key one that we've focused on within our team, training our team to focus on that when it comes to building the interfaces and applications as we are designing them. And also from our team, just training them on making sure they're being neutrally. I think in US, there's this, why you say that is in vain is it's become more women-led or minority-focused, whereas coming from India, we focus on it's more around disability and more around the socioeconomic bridging the gap than that. So I think that's what we continue to invest in that and focus on that from our side.
Sabrina?
Yeah, as Accor is like also operating globally, we have to be mindful in which country we are positioning also our DIE priorities, but we can say that definitely also women in the workforce is one point we want to focus on, people with disabilities, etc. So there's many things we still have to tackle. And obviously, as we also heard from your keynote, it's not only like being available for our guests and putting that out there, but also training our staff and our people and take them on this journey with us. So yeah, we keep on going.
Wonderful. And Maria?
Yeah, so I'm happy to share that our company is already 50-50 male-female, exactly. So we would love to maintain that balance. It brings a nice, well-rounded thought process to our team. But then also we're focused on, I'm going to be focused on management style and tools for our team members with non-apparent disabilities to make the work environment more comfortable for them, to help them do their job in an easier way. They already do their job very well, but how do we make it easier for them? So that'll be a focus for
Maria,
us.
would you mind sharing maybe 2 or 3 or 1 or 2 kind of specific examples of what that's looks like for somebody with non-apparent disabilities, the way you adapt for them in the workforce?
Sure. So non-apparent disabilities, just for context, just in case you weren't here earlier, that could be anxiety, depression, ADHD, autism. It's a group that think a little bit differently than what we would maybe expect. And so, you can teach them to use timers during their workday. There's organizational tools like Trello that can help them streamline their focus from a management perspective. A lot of times, a lot of us would look at it as micromanagement. They would like to be micromanaged. That makes them feel better. So I think it's, at the end of the day, it's understanding who you're working with. And it really doesn't matter if they have a non-apparent disability or not. How do you help that person do their job to the best of their ability?
Yeah, I think that's a great point on leadership overall. The sign of most of the good leaders and managers, and I think most of our careers, is adapting. Each one of our employees is different. They have different personal needs, professional needs, and being able to flex around that as a leader while still having expectations. We touched on women and gender. It seems that there's still a long way to go. So I don't want to suggest, and many countries in Europe have much better, cultural, social equality across men and women and gender in general. But it seems like we've made a lot more progress over the last decades in different countries and different cultures. It varies. And again, there's still a long way to go. Alessandra from Women in Travel CIC is here. Do you mind just putting your hand up, Alessandra? If you have a chance, please talk to her. I'm a mentor in her program, which is wonderful. I wonder, are there insights or learnings from that effort, from that movement, which wasn't a straight line, which had setbacks, which had frictions, and still has a ways to go that we could apply to other elements of diversity and inclusion? And I'll just make this a jump ball. Does somebody want to start out or share a perspective? You're smiling, Sabrina. I don't want to call on you, but...
Yeah, I can.
No, please, yeah.
I think I can proudly share that we have like 39% women representation in VP level and above at Accor. And we work pretty hard for this number and just shared it with our financial results. but I agree what you were saying. There's like still ways to go. I was last year on a different event, and there was like a professor from the University of Stuttgart, and she actually shared like that we need like another 16 years to have like equal women representation in DAX companies in Germany. So as we're here in Germany, I just like pick up this. And this is kind of like a, you know, it's a scary statement when you just hear it out there. So we are concentrating at Accor simply really also on the fact that 39% is good, but it's not enough. It's not equal. It's not 50-50. So therefore we have like a wonderful program which is called Step Up. It's dedicated for women who want to have like a leadership position or just like on their career path. And we are supporting them with this development program to continue and yeah, step up.
Do you mind sharing at Corry, there are one or two things that you've seen internally that's been highly successful, whether it was along gender lines with women or other diversity that seemed to really catalyze or make the program get more steam?
Especially for this program I just mentioned, it was of course that we wanted to support more equality, and with that we have like a balanced team mix, especially when it comes to our leadership teams and senior leadership teams. And then there, I mean, it was also a bottom-up approach that we just like ask our teams, what do you actually need? And to be very specific, this program is designed that it's really empowering women to just come out of their comfort zone and not hide somewhere, and supporting them and bringing them to the front.
Wonderful. And Monish and Maria, you know, from your perspective, anything that you've seen, maybe it's a best practice or something that was highly catalyzing, whether it was in efforts around women, gender, or other lines of diversity. Maria, do you want to start first, and then Monish?
Sure. One thing that stands out to me about what we've already done is I think that we have started addressing things at a much earlier age. So we are now telling young women when they are in elementary school that they can be a CEO, that they can be a rocket scientist. And so I think that, you know, addressing it at the workplace level is important, but we're now starting to see some of the effects of the foundations that get started much earlier in life, and I think that's important.
You know, for me, it was enlightening a few years back when I started traveling to grow the business in Asia, and you'd go through Asia, and there's a lot of women who were already up at the top, were CEOs, were leading the businesses or the business units, and the men around them were actually just working for them, reporting into them, which was quite different than what we used to see out in the States or in Europe, and now that's starting to change. And we took that to stride when we went back to our hiring practices, and I went and shared these stories, and I said, well, why don't we have the women coming in here? And there's this stigma around whether they can be engineers or whether they can be in certain positions, and we sort of had to break that thought process and really change that. And we started assigning our director of HR cannot just be, you know, a male, it needs to be a female, and bring in and implement those practices within the company, build it part of the culture, so that they're reminded of that, you know, this is how we want you to think of and grow. And then we do training sessions on those, making sure that the team understands that.
Yeah, I'm struck by how, you know, and it makes sense. And Aditi, your external research that Expedia did, that notion of being able to see yourself even as a consumer in ads represented, right? Being able to understand it also conveys you're welcome, you know. I wonder, you know, certainly from the employees, what the three of you have touched on, you know, being able to see yourself internally and helping accelerate that. I wonder if there's anything in the external research on the consumer side that you didn't get a chance to, or some additional nuggets you could share with us along that, or any other perspective you have.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, so the research itself was a part of kind of our overall portfolio around inclusive travel, where we're trying to address and better understand the needs of, you know, diverse travelers. Some of the other work that we do in that space, one of the programs is called our Made to Travel Fund, which is a philanthropic effort underneath our brand Expedia, where we support nonprofits that are breaking down barriers and access to travel. So a lot of what we do there is also fund first ever travel experiences and getting to be able to experience travel for the first time. So again, you're kind of opening your eyes to the fact that this is for me as well, right? That this is something, and the transformative power of travel is part of that as well. So one of the organizations, for example, is called Global Glimpse, where we're funding, high potential high school students who have never left the country to be able to go on their first travel experience, kind of have a whole educational experience as they're traveling, and come back. And many of them are then seeking careers in the travel industry also as a result, to be able to kind of pay it forward for future communities around getting access to travel. But that first step and that first kind of opportunity to get outside of the country, we see how transformative that is to then really building that lifelong connection to travel as well.
I'm curious, have any one of the three of you as well, did you have an early experience, it could be within your country, that really opened yourself up to diversity, to different perspectives?
Oh, well, coming from India, I think we're naturally born into diversity. So, I've always had that. We've never thought of it differently. In fact, when we started hearing more about it, we were like, why do people have to say that? And we actually educate ourselves on why it was important. Coming from the background that I did, I actually had to teach myself on that. So today we make an extra effort to make sure that our kids understand that growing up in the US, what it means and why we are so naturally inept with it and why they should be with it, community outreach, going out and spending time there. So.
Wonderful. And if there is something, if there's not, it's fine. I didn't know if Maria or Sabrina, anything in particular in your own personal experience with your child.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, actually, it's not with me. It's with my son. For him, everyone is the same. And then when your kids start growing up and they're in school, and depending on the environment that they're in, they all of a sudden come home and start asking questions about why did so-and-so say this and why did so-and-so say that. And where I live at in the Midwest in the United States, his experience at school was to start learning that not everyone is treated in the same way, and he didn't understand why. And for me, that was a moment because I'd worked so hard, of course, to bring him up without having that filter, and then he didn't acquire it, but he started hearing about it at school. Thankfully, he did not acquire it.
I imagine in his life that's exploded the aperture of understanding other people that may have different backgrounds of difference. That's a wonderful lesson, even a painful one to go through in the way he may have had experienced it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But Sabrina, yourself?
Yeah, well, being based in Switzerland, we are having like three languages there, and there is kind of like this humbleness already to make that there is like, the French influence, the German influence, the Italian constantly, so there's like an effort there. And of course, being like in the heart of Europe, working for like a European company, you are constantly surrounded by like so many nationalities, so many languages, which is always like a good reminder, and is personally for me, I'm very proud that I have like that access to so many different nationalities like all the time, and it's a good reminder to be just like aware about yourself and when you're putting yourself out there.
Wonderful. Let's switch gears a little and talk about the role of technology in diversity. Does technology have a role? Does it play a role, whether we realize it or not? And what should that role be? And I'll make this a jump ball. And Didi, I see you nodding your head. Would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. So, I think, technology definitely provides a great platform for personalization, for being able to access and get information around kind of, and to be able to verify and get trusted information, get information from your communities. I think a lot of the research that, again, we conducted was about how to make sure that people are able to get the right kind of information when they need it and quickly. And technology obviously can be an enabler of that. We obviously still have a lot of work to do, as we saw in a lot of the data. There's still a great kind of time burden associated with this. But we are seeing more and more travel technology companies emerge that are dedicated and focused exclusively on inclusion and diversity. We ran an accelerator program about a year ago called the Open World Accelerator, where we supported 12 different startups around the world whose entire business was about making travel more inclusive and accessible. Some amazing companies in the mix there that are doing everything from helping kind of vacation rentals to make those more physically accessible for travelers with disability needs. Startups that are designed around helping women feel safe while traveling to different places, especially as they're going on journeys by themselves, but really also using technology as kind of a tool for crowdsourcing information, being able to get that information, again, in verified ways, or being able to provide those kind of forums for people to be able to verify that information. So yeah, getting access to better information, having some new and diverse sources of information for individuals as they're seeking to make those travel decisions, all are really powered and enabled by technology.
Monish, do you want to?
I mean, look, content is king. I think to add to that, technology and AI is making it a lot easier to help diversify the interfaces, the applications, making that content available. Gen AI with its just text-to-speech has revolutionized how easy it is for somebody to now speak into a website and talk to it and get feedback. We're testing with how clients can actually do searches, implement full booking flows just with text-to-speech. So clearly, technology will play a big role in how we help diversify and make the product a lot more inclusive.
Sabrina?
Yeah, we are the lucky people that we are like in the people's business. Welcoming guests will always be like a personal interaction, and we see like artificial intelligence and technology as an enabler for our people in the hotels. And you always have to check in if that's the right way to go. But personally, for my department, talent and culture, human resources, of course, it's a major step towards non-biased recruitment, where technology is like a super supporter for the first selection of candidates and the candidate experience. And also when you are working with managers and suggesting like the first candidates, it's very nice to give like a wider selection and a more diverse selection. So that's a super support, but yeah, I'm coming back to we are in the people business, there has to be a personal check on what this artificial intelligence is doing.
Wonderful, Marie.
Yes, I already touched on this earlier, but I think that technology is really important in the workplace now. And, we now have access to so many different pieces of software. If you think about, there's platforms out there just to distribute software that one individual wrote that could help many people. And so I think that, especially in that non-apparent disability space, having access to these tools where maybe even smaller companies that are just coming up with one very specific thing that can help many people, we have access to that now, and we never did before.
Yeah. Wonderful. When Aditi was sharing the data on consumers and Expedia, the degree to which people don't see themselves, people of diverse backgrounds, in advertising, in areas, part of me was both, at the same time devastated to see how deep those numbers were, 70% in some cases, people, in aggregate, varying depending on their background, but also knowing that Gen AI, so I'm aware of several startups that are doing Gen AI video that imagine the same hotel property, imagine a video for it, and instead of seeing some guy that looks like me, preferably with a little better hair, but being able to see an Indian romantic couple, a Chinese family, a solo female traveler from Australia, and having the videos have people that look like them, right? There's enough more at a persona level, on the path to true personalization of the individual. There may be a day where you can opt in, you choose to upload a full body picture of your family, and you could see yourselves out on the jet skis or at the restaurant, at a hotel, or at an experience. But from a diversity standpoint, I do know that technology is coming. I will say a human in the loop is still essential right now. And I do believe in the next 2 to 3 years, being realistic of how long, not just technology, adoption and making sure it's in brand safety, that I'm hopeful, because it's self-fulfilling, isn't it? If I don't see somebody, then I don't go there. If I don't go there, then there's not diversity. So, perhaps the best case one can make for diversity and inclusion is the business case. And it feels a little bit like maybe that wasn't as front and center, but now maybe the silver lining of some of the challenges to some programs is that when you look at whether it's Harvard Business School or study after study, non-diverse teams perform well. Diverse teams outperform them, and it's not even close. I think one of the studies, it was by difference of 73 to 88% a diverse team outperform them. And I wonder whether it's in your company or outside, do you see examples that you're able to point to the ROI, the business case? Because implied in that is if you're a CEO and you're not pursuing diversity and inclusion, right, you're underperforming and therefore you're failing in your fiduciary responsibility. So who wants to jump on this one first in terms of the business case for diversity and outcomes?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump on that. We looked at it a bit differently. Indian background again that kicked in. We looked at it from a astrological sense when it came to diversity, and what we found was when we started running the astrology of all our leadership team and how they interacted with their team members and everything, the better we aligned what the diverse factors on where they got along with. So we did this human design thing, and we ran their astrology and where they interact, and we built diverse teams using that. And what we found was they just responded, and the output was amazing. It was like over 60% better output, which really helped us with that.
Wonderful.
Yeah, maybe also not like from a top-down approach, but more from a bottom-up approach. As our employee engagement survey, we included especially a question about diversity and also how our teams are working, or do they find that the teams are diverse enough? What would they like to see in the future? And the results of this is actually really also very inspiring, that they're giving examples when they are not only with the similar people in the same team, that the outcomes of their teamwork is much better. To give just one example, that's what I can share.
Yeah. Maria?
Yeah, and to follow on to that, I don't have any specific stats around it, but what I can say for our company is that we started producing better ideas when we had more diverse teams. So you're avoiding the echo chamber effect. If you have a group of people that all think the same way, then you're going to produce a limited set of ideas.
Yeah, I'd be interested, Aditi, in your perspective, and I would also ask, I imagine, I'm not sure if you took your data and said what the implied revenue or missed revenue opportunity of that might be for any company in the travel space of 70% of people don't see themselves and therefore aren't maybe booking with you. So I'm not sure if you quantified or did, but
yeah, I think it becomes a little evident with just those statistics that absolutely that you're missing out on a huge market. I think we obviously looked at the economic case at a high level around kind of these communities and as consumers and their economic and their buying power. I think also, taking from that though is, yes, we're talking about kind of travelers with disabilities, but we're also talking about families. And even if you're traveling with an individual who has a disability, I mean, the data just becomes so large and so compelling. And so having that information available and accessible for these individuals is obviously important to them, but also to their families or over the course of their lifetime, especially if you're trying to develop lifetime kind of relationships with your consumers as well. It becomes important over the course of that as well.
It's a fantastic point. Yeah. I think the panel before also talked about that is, it's the other people in your life, depending upon whether it's a disability or an element of diversity, whether apparent or non-apparent, depending on the case may be. This is not quantifiable or quantified, so I'm just going to throw this out here. It feels like to many of us that may be of an older generation, if you look at my hairline, so I'm not putting any of you in that category. Monish has fantastic hair. But it feels like there's a shift generationally, and it's not just in one culture and country, and obviously it's also relative to that culture. It's different in Japan than Germany, than, let's say in Argentina or another country. But it feels like there's a change in the younger generation in how they relate, how they expect, how they value diversity. And I wonder from an internal and or a consumer perspective, as you think about shifts in the younger generation, and you can choose whether you focus on your company internally or what you see in the market. I'd love your perspective on what you see among the younger generation and what and how you adapt, understanding that. Maybe we could go in reverse order, starting with Maria first.
Sure. What I see from the younger generation is that they're just extremely open about what their disabilities are. And that's very, very helpful because then everyone around them can understand that. But if they're hiding, you know, the older generation kind of tended to hide that a little bit, then everyone around them can't understand. So that's what I've noticed.
Wonderful. Sabrina?
Yeah, yes, definitely see like a difference there. And I like to share maybe like an internal practice which we put in place also to bring the generations a little bit closer together, that they can share. And we actually implemented like a mentoring system, which is mentoring for all, where actually the older generation or the younger generation can sign up to it, and it works like kind of like a matching platform, and you can just like search directly for like a topic. Okay, I want to talk about disability, or I need mentoring in like career growth, etc. And so we mix and match them, and we have like some great results. You know, sometimes you need a helping hand, and it's good to get like a great advice for somebody who is like longer in the workforce for yourself, and sometimes you just like need somebody to talk about maybe not like a seen disability, and somebody can help you. So we try also to internally connect on those topics.
Wonderful. Manish?
Yeah. I think the younger generation is far more inclusive. That's just how I feel, looking at my kids and how they interact with others. I mean, I just took them to India in December for the first time, and they met kids over there of our staff members and everything, and they had a common language somehow because they have the world internet, they have Instagram, they have common tools that they're looking at.
Probably playing gaming Roblox against each other.
Exactly. You know, they sit next to each other on a device, but they're able to communicate on that. And they're far more inclusive, you know, and they actually teach us. Like, I feel like my kids teach me more about inclusiveness when it comes to gender neutrality or things that they're experiencing in school.
Wonderful. Didi?
Yeah, so definitely when we're looking at kind of the traveler side, we do see obviously a change in how travelers are engaging with content, especially the younger generation, and in particular how they're getting advice and tips and tricks around travel. And so one of the products that we launched last year is called Travel Shops, which allows for social media influencers to be able to share their trips and their itineraries and their experiences at different hotels, but to create those as directly bookable experiences with Expedia Group. And so what we've found there is a way to connect, obviously, with the younger consumer, but we've also found kind of a solution to some of what I shared in the research earlier, which is that, you know, diverse travelers or underserved travelers are looking for more insight and input from their community. And, you know, kind of not too dissimilar to what you're doing in the workplace in terms of matchmaking, in some ways also through influencers and travelers, you're kind of matchmaking to have travelers hear directly from people who they feel would have a similar experience to them when traveling somewhere, what that looked like. Over 70% of our influencers currently are from underrepresented groups, so a highly diverse set of influencers who are able to then kind of share those insights and tips out with their community, and for those travelers to feel like they're getting trusted sources of information when they're making their booking decisions.
Wonderful. Okay, we're in the last minute, 20 seconds. Any key takeaways, final thought that we didn't get a chance to touch on? For you, Marie?
I would just say be an ambassador. Awareness is key. We've learned more and more over the last decade about what DEI does mean, and be a personal ambassador.
Wonderful. Sabrina?
People first, always. That's our statement, but also personally mine. And yeah, I can just like what you said is like also staying with me, being aware. That will help us all.
Wonderful. Manish?
Active participation, you know, I think it adds to what Maria said with, you know, be an ambassador, participate yourself actively into it, show your team that you are implementing these rules and doing the community outreach with
Wonderful. Aditi?
Yeah, I would say to be authentic and be consistent. So I think, travelers are very wary of whatever, you might be putting out there. So I think making sure that you're really, carrying through that commitment throughout everything that you're doing is really important.
Wonderful. And my quick closing thought and encouragement for everybody is we are so lucky in this travel industry. We are the ambassadors globally, right? When people go and experience other cultures in a world that can feel, especially lately, more divisive and contentious geopolitically and more tribal, what enables us to step in somebody else's shoes and understand their perspective is travel. And that doesn't have to be across countries, it could be within, and it's also within our own companies. The more we can learn from another and engage with one another, I think, and build bridges instead of walls, the better off the world will be for all of us and our kids in the future. And with that, turn it back to you, Charlotte.
Thank you very, very much. Yes, yes.